Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Confessions, Book 2. Again, I'm Chad England from the University of Dallas. So wonderful to be with you all to talk about a text that is so central for each one of us, Augustine's Confessions. The question for today is, what's attractive about evil? Now, it is a question, and we might not think of it as a question, but great things about having children is they remind you in their innocent probing questions just how little our stock answers to things really make sense. So one of the great things my kids have continually remind me when they probe this question: Dad, why did that person do that? Why did Judas betray Jesus? Or why did this character in the story do this, right? What did they hope to gain? Why did they do this bad thing? And of course, we have stock answers for that. But if you really push and probe, there's something puzzling about it. And it's especially puzzling when we ask the question about our own selves, not about someone else, not about some character, but about myself. Why did I do that bad thing? I knew it was bad, yet I did it. Why? What was going on there? And Augustine is exploring that question in this chapter. So we say to ourselves, gosh, why does he go on and on and on about the theft of pears? It seems like a fairly trivial event in a long life. And yet it is an event that gets us sort of a window onto something very essential about each one of us. Why are we doing these bad things? And there's something deeply important from a philosophical point of view at work in this text. So on the classical analysis, if you had a Socrates or a Plato or an Aristotle, their main emphasis in analyzing why people do bad things is that there was some kind of ignorance at work in what the person did. This is especially the case for Socrates, somewhat the case for Plato, and in Aristotle there's room for seeing a little bit more of a dynamism, but there is nonetheless a case in which you should replace your confessionals with philosophical classrooms, because if you want to reform behavior, what you need to do is to set people down and explain to them just why it's not in their best interest to do bad. And that's why you should get this great classic of Western civilization, Plato's Republic. Its booming voice for many pages upon pages is this brilliant argument for why it's never in your best interest to do bad, right? Because it always creates turmoil in your soul. And so you're always losing the pearl of great price, no matter what external goods your ill behavior might gain you. So on the classical account, people are really making a mistake when they do evil. Now, if we look at what Augustine is doing in the pears, with the pears, here he is, he's a kid, he's hanging out with other kids, and they go and they steal these pears from the neighbor's yard. It's important for his analysis that he's got his own pears that taste better. It's important for his analysis that they're not eating the pears, right? They're not motivated by the taste. What are they motivated for? Very strangely, they are motivated by the malice of it, right? There's no good to be gained, but only malice. There's something deeply irrational about choosing something because it's bad. If you look at page 41, this is in chapter 4, book 2, we hear Augustine say, there was no motive for my malice except malice. I was hungry not for some advantage to be gained by the foul deed, but for the foulness of it. There's something very odd about the theft of the pears. Augustine wasn't hungry. He didn't find them attractive. He did it just for the foulness of it. And so if we think back to what Socrates might say, is, oh, he needed to be set down and explain why it wasn't really in his own advantage. And Augustine wants to say, no, there's something more going on. I was choosing this because it was bad. It wasn't ignorance about its badness. It was actually because I knew it was bad that I was doing it. It's a fundamental challenge to the classical account here. It's strange. And again, in our own life, we know what we should do, but we fail to do it. All right, so what does Augustine do? He says, the only way to make sense of these kinds of episodes, like stealing pears. And by the way, I know we each have, or most of us has some episode from our adolescence that's equivalent. For me, it was breaking a bunch of cement blocks in a construction site near my house when I was a kid. We probably busted up 30, 40 cement blocks into a foundation just because it was destructive. And I know too from grading very many confessions projects that I've assigned to students over the years that I'm not the only one in having some kind of pear theft in my own life. Some way in which I've done something, or we've all done something that we knew we shouldn't have, but we did it just because we knew we shouldn't do it. There was some way in which the destruction was at work. And what's Augustine's explanation? His explanation is that we are, as he says on page 45, this is chapter 6, at the very end, near the end, paragraph 14. All those who wander far away and set themselves up against you are imitating you. There's a way in which we are unhealthy. We're in an unhealthy condition. We are in a state of rebellion. That somehow the spring of this action was a kind of disordered state of fallenness or rebellion. And he then proceeds to flag for us the three sort of classic temptations of pride, curiosity, and lust. And he marries that also to the 7 deadly sins. And he says there's this disordered tendency in us. Why do we do evil? This is something Socrates didn't understand. There's something the matter with us. We don't just need someone to cure our mind. It's not just it's not just a matter of ignorance. We need someone to cure our soul, someone to cure our center of action. We need a malady rubbed into our very center of action. We need grace. That's what Socrates couldn't fathom, but that's what we're given in the Christian life. There's something the matter with us. We need healing. We need medicine. And that medicine, that balm, that elixir is the grace that is given to us through the mediation of Jesus Christ. And so the chapter actually ends sort of gesturing towards Jesus as our helper who can cure us. So I think it's important to underscore the following. When we think about Augustine, we think, oh, he's talking about sin. He looks unkindly upon the world. Well, let's look at our quotation for the day. He's very careful to say that everything that is created is good. And so sin doesn't come from any created good. Where does sin come from? Sin gains entrance through these and similar good things when we turn to them with immoderate desire, since they are the lowest kind of goods, and we thereby turn away from the better and higher, from you yourself, O Lord our God, in your truth and your law. So here's the problem. It's not the case that sin comes from sinful objects. Everything that exists, just insofar as it exists, is created by God and is good. Where does sin come from? It comes from a disorder in our own heart, a disorder in our own loves, and a living out of a kind of rebellion where we invert what Augustine calls the ordo amoris, or order of love. So we could represent it this way. According to Augustine, we have this as a hierarchy of being: God, souls, and bodies. And we go right when we love things in that order. 1, 2, 3. But what do? We go wrong when we do this. We invert. We put God in some other place besides number 1. We put bodies above all things. this is the kind of immoderation that he's talking about, this immoderate desire. We have to moderate our desire so that we are in this situation and not in this one. All right, for next time, read books 3 to 5. We'll see you then. Take care.